We have, I would say, almost 1,000 retailers that we work with.
Wow.
And half of those are like strong, dedicated customers, basically.
Yes. In key locations in cities, in the best parts of town in terms of fashion. And
so dedicated was very much grounded in sustainability and responsibility from the start.
So we're here today to talk about the incredible story of Dedicated and the history from when you started the brand. And can I call it conscious capitalism? Is that a way to describe it, or conscious fashion? What?
Yeah, it definitely works.
Okay. So I'd love to start at the beginning and hear a little bit about how you got into the fashion industry to start with, and maybe you can take us on the journey up until the present day. That would be great.
Gladly.
If you can remember that far back.
Yeah, reminiscent now. But I got extremely dedicated to skateboarding, completely obsessed with skateboarding in my teens. So when I was 14, I borrowed 500 euros from my dad with 5% interest.
They didn't have euros back then.
Yeah, it was 5,000 kroners equivalent.
Yeah,
and started importing a few skateboards from the States.
Okay,
and then I could scale that up a little bit, like every time.
Yeah,
and just selling.
So selling US skateboards in Sweden.
Yeah, just to the skate community in the suburbs around Stockholm.
Wow,
and it's no big business at all, but it was enough to finance like a dream trip I did when I was 15. Because Swedish skate pro Hasse Lindgren, he had a room that he rented in Huntington Beach, but he was going to be home in Sweden for the whole summer. So he said, just take my room. And I was there 3 weeks.
And this is in California?
Yeah, Huntington Beach, Surf City.
Oh my word. And you were how old?
15.
15?
So I was turning 16 later that summer.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening because I've seen all the skate films that are from that era, like skateboarding had a big boom in global boom 87 to 88, like those years.
I've seen the documentaries. Mm-hmm. It's incredible how that sport just out of nowhere became like, it was in every kid was on a skateboard.
Yeah, and I soaked it all up. Anything to do with skateboarding I was into.
Wow.
Like the music scene and the fashion.
When you were selling those skateboards, it was also a taste of retail, I guess, even though you were selling the boards to your friends. But it was a little bit of taste of how to make a margin and how to make a profit. It
was import business and how to position it, because there were skate buddies. So I wanted to, present a good deal, but still cover my cost and so on. And have a premium for the risk I was taking.
Yeah. I assume you were an actual hardcore skateboarder too.
Yeah, well into it, competing and so on. Not I loved it very much. Not to say that I have huge talent. That's not the case at all, but I gave me so much in terms of...
Can you still jump over a garbage bin? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Probably not very...
over a small dog, maybe.
Yeah, I'd rather do that.
Okay, so you went and stayed in California, and then you were immersed in the skateboarding culture in the heart of the revolution of skateboarding. Like you were there.
Yeah.
Who did you meet? Did you meet any famous boarders?
Yeah, we met a few pros and so on, but it was more about going to the actual skate spots, like Huntington High School. That's been in a lot of skateboard videos and so on. To see those spots real life and skate them felt really cool. And meet new friends every day and so on.
Wow.
Oh, you're from Sweden. Oh, they skateboard there. Yeah.
So you were watching these films on television in Sweden of these iconic locations, and then like all of a sudden you're there in the place.
Yeah, it was eye-opening because it also made me realize that this is something I want to devote my life to, do my own businesses and create my own kind of adventure based on what I think it's relevant and interesting.
Wow.
So that was a luxury that I discovered very quickly.
Yeah. How did you, fusing a business with a passion like that, it's hard to stay authentic. Like how did you I know. I remember from the documentaries there was also, a lot of business came out of it as well during that time as well. And I think some of the iconic brands of today were founded around that time in street fashion and in boarding and snowboarding and those kinds of things. But was it difficult to kind of marry those two things, making a profit from your hobby, or did it just come natural?
Yeah, it wasn't a big business, but big enough to sow the seed.
Okay.
I think it's perfect to combine your passion with profit-making business.
Yeah, you're lucky you got that at 16. It's taken me till 38 to find my passion.
Also, things evolve. So now I'm not so active in skateboarding anymore, but still, it's part of me. And but now we pour all our passion into sustainable development, specifically within fashion.
Right. But the DNA is there in everything you do, really, from back in those days.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So
how long were you in California for?
First time there 3 weeks over the summer, and then went back a few years later, 6 months.
Yeah.
But that was after graduating from high school. I worked there 6 months just to skateboard again. Amazing. But by then, I never had any professional ambitions or anything like that. Just loved it. Okay. But I could see there's such a huge gap in terms of talent between my level and the pro level. Oh. So you didn't think you could earn actually from the boarding side of it? But. Oh, no. Okay. And it wasn't the X Games yet, or is boarding in the Olympics now? Skateboarding, not quite in the Olympics, but... Yeah, it was supposed to be, but that got postponed now in Japan. Okay. I think they're going to push it a year or two because of the pandemic. But that will be skateboarding's debut in the Olympic arena. Okay. So you were born 4 decades or 3 decades too early. Yeah. You could have been in the Olympics. Okay. And then from there, you came back to Sweden and it evolved. You carried on with the retail journey. When did Dedicate start? Like after that experience? Yeah, I started my first fashion business in 1996. I was studying in London then, and it was quite expensive, as you can imagine, with rent and tuition and so on. But I started this fashion accessory business the first year in London, and that went really well because I knew better than expected almost. Yeah. I was well in tune with the trends and the subcultures and so on. I could see where things were going. Okay. And so I started selling fashion accessories first in London and then throughout Europe. So every break and on weekends I would go to different cities in Europe with my car. Wow. And find the better stores in each city and build a network from there. Like so a reseller network. Everyone. Yeah. Wow. Are any of those stores still in the network today? Yes, some of them. Okay. And a lot of the distribution partners that we work with for Dedicate, I also worked with 15 years ago. Wow. Okay. And then conscious retail sustainability, was that always in your mind from the beginning, or did it evolve? No, from my work with the accessory company, I was visiting a lot of the production hubs in fashion in China and Pakistan and India, around the world. And so I saw the massive destruction caused by the fashion industry firsthand with polluted rivers and waterways and exploited workers and so on, underpaid and terrible working conditions and so on. So when the time came to start a new business that later on became Dedicated, it was decided from the onset that it has to be like a business to solve this problem. Yeah, to make things better and apply best practice, try to be the better choice in terms of social impact and environmental impact and all these things. Amazing. So where are we at today in terms of scale? So we started off with your journey there when you were 16, and where are we today in terms of the success of Dedicated? How many resellers do you have? And we're still kind of in the started phase with Dedicated. We've only been going, the company's been active since 2006, And then it was like a retail concept that we opened in 25 larger cities around the world, including Asia and UK and so on. And later we saw the growing awareness of the need for more sustainably and responsibly produced fashion among people. And
the new generations were demanding more from retailers.
Yeah. And we also seen that the few conscious brands that were responsible, they were seldom very good at putting out products that contemporary people could relate to.
Okay.
So they were kind of lacking
the connection to the street, lacking the urban street connection, trending. Yeah.
Exactly like that. And the popular, brands that were considered cool were all terrible at taking responsibility for their supply chain.
Right.
So that was the starting point of, okay, we're going to do a consumer brand now. It's going to be called Dedicated. So that was 2012.
And the business model was to roll out your own stores originally?
Yeah, before, that was another environmentally oriented retail concept called T-shirt store that we rebranded. It's still the same company, but instead of doing franchise stores, we now do like a wholesale and online model for fashion. So we put out 2 main collections every year that we take pre-orders and then produce and deliver. That's kind of rolling in the traditional fashion cycle, basically.
Right. How many of those do you have today?
We have 5 retail stores today.
Yeah.
But we actually open a 6th one next week in Turin.
Oh, nice.
But we don't plan to open a lot of stores naturally because retail is very suffering now. It's oversaturated. Yes. And rents are still very high.
Right.
So it's better to focus online where we can reach more people quicker. Because this is our focus now, is just to scale the business securely but quickly.
Yes.
So we can have a better impact.
Yes.
More power to speed up sustainable development.
And the retailers, I'm guessing, because you've kind of handpicked the retail partners over the years, you've gone for quality rather than quantity. So those businesses, how many of those are globally do you have that are buying and reselling?
Yeah, we have, I would say, almost 1,000 retailers that we work with.
Wow.
And half of those are like strong, dedicated customers, basically.
Yes. In key locations in cities, in the best parts of town in terms of fashion. And
so Dedicated was very much grounded in sustainability and responsibility from the start. And therefore we've been focused on like-minded retailers, a lot of eco-fashion stores and conscious fashion stores. And most of those are in the German-speaking countries and Benelux. That's kind of the world epicenter of sustainable fashion.
Okay.
And I think Scandinavia comes after that, maybe, and France is on the way. California is probably pretty good by American measures.
Yes.
And after that comes the Catholic countries, and lastly, the Asian countries, basically. Yeah. So these questions are not really on the agenda in the same way yet.
Yeah.
But it's this development is a mega trend. So it will be with us for the rest of our lives.
Exactly. I don't think even calling it a trend is fair. It's a revolution. It's definitely people now are much more conscious about what it is they're eating, what it is they're buying, and this is not going away. This is intensifying.
Yeah, we can clearly see that, especially younger people, maybe they don't have such a strong relations to traditional institutions and state institutions and so on. They have maybe better trust in brands.
Yeah.
So they are looking for brands that have values they can align with.
Yes.
And then they will support those brands.
And authentic transparency, those types of brands that aren't just in it for the profit, which is like conscious capitalism. There is a balance of it can be done. So Dedicated are doing it, and many others. I think perhaps Whole Foods in the US could be argued as an example of upsetting the supermarket industry. But it's an incredible achievement and a tough one. How do you balance creating margins versus maintaining that quality and in the materials and making sure that the suppliers are doing what they should be doing?
Yeah, it's a big equation. This it is different for every category of garments and fabric and so on. But in general, we want to lower the bar for normal people to be able to consume sustainably and responsibly produced fashion.
Yeah.
So that's why we make it relatable to them by, cool graphics.
We have some examples here actually.
Collabs and so on. So we want to be as inclusive as possible. That's why we present like a umbrella of styles where you can curate.
Right, and it's accessible because the retail price of this T-shirt is
35
euros. So it's accessible, yeah, and it's organic cotton, and you have in this case a license arrangement with Peanuts, Snoopy.
Exactly, David Schultz's legendary family cartoon.
Yeah, and many other incredible partnerships.
Yeah, we work with cult films and including Star Wars and Big Lebowski, Scarface, Dirty Dancing, Pulp Fiction, and loads of others.
Wow! So,
and because we're into that pop culture nerds,
right?
And cool illustrators and photographers.
So that's also a key to the success. Is you've been able to work on licensing arrangements with some iconic brands and everyone from Disney to
Universal Studios
and so on.
Those are the two brand pillars, basically: sustainability and creativity.
Okay,
and they kind of feed each other.
But it's, in a way, you're working with a big Goliath. I mean, Disney is one of the biggest media companies in the world, and then there's you here in Stockholm, and you are partnering up. So it's a bridge.
Yeah,
it's a good achievement.
Yeah, you can only try. It's easier now because we have a track record, and we know how to work with companies like this. But in the start, it was just a gamble.
Okay. What was the first one?
First one was because hockey is very big in Sweden, and when we have the retail concept, we started with the NHL, National Hockey League.
Okay.
And then we didn't do licenses for a couple of years until later with Dedicated launch in 2012, Star Wars, when the new films came. So we had a flying start with Dedicated.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was a good move for us.
Yeah, amazing. So how do you feel about the future for sustainable fashion and for Dedicated? What do you see now in the next 3 or 4 years?
At the moment, every brand is talking about being responsible and sustainable and so on, and it's very positive. And I hope we get a bit of regulation so you can't call just about anything responsible or sustainable.
Right.
We need that fairly quickly because otherwise the big guys will just greenwash and steal the agenda. So that's a risk. But people are way educated now, and information is accessible.
Yeah.
So
we can do things like this. I think channels like Netflix and these platforms that everyone can access now for $10 a month are educating people on the truth.
Yeah.
And it's good to see these documentaries being made, and it's really coming to the people are much smarter now.
It helps tremendously. And state medias around in Europe are also producing their own documentaries. So it's not only the do-gooders like Patagonia and so on that are producing this material. It's a wave. And like yourself now doing a podcast based on speeding up sustainable development in different fields and sectors.
And getting these stories out into the world. In Stockholm, I meet too many amazing people that have got fantastic stories to tell, but they haven't converted those stories into modern media like podcasting or YouTube, that kind of thing. So I'm really enjoying helping find these stories and get them out there. And if it helps sell a T-shirt, or a beanie, then that's a good thing because it's authentic.
That's the main key in the reasoning. It must be to add additional value. So there's no real sustainable brand out there. Everything has a carbon footprint, etc. But if you can have that footprint, like I think we're doing, and a lot of the responsible brands are doing, organic GOTS certified T-shirt has about half the carbon footprint compared to 98% of the other T-shirts out there on the market that are conventional cotton. That's a huge value, and 70% of people in the world say that they are willing to pay extra for that.
You make a good point there. It's not a zero-sum game in terms of sustainability. It's about impact reduction rather than abolishing it. I mean, we have lights here, not candles. It's there's a balance, right, that we need to play. And I think that's what you're saying is we have to think about overconsumption and of course the standards that go into the products. It's right, like from a humanity perspective.
Yeah. So I hope that legislations catches up actually.
Okay.
Because that would level the playing fields. For instance, within the European Union, that this is allowed, but we don't allow virgin polyester clothing anymore, right? Because it's pointless, destructive to the planet, etc.
And there are proven ways of doing it in other ways that still make a profit. So there's no excuse.
Always apply best practice and always try to minimize the damage you're causing.
Right.
And be aware of the damage you're causing with the. So we're happier if we can convince one of our factories to switch to renewable energy and take that investment. Makes us way more happy than maybe some new customers that we're super humbled and pleased to have those new customers. But making a factory switch, it's a bigger win for us.
Okay. So let's say I'm going to start a fashion brand in January. At the start of the new year, I'm going to launch a fashion brand. What advice would you give me?
Yeah, well, fashion market is extremely oversaturated, extremely competitive, and so on. So you need a very sharp and clear concept from the start. And it doesn't have to be perfect from the start, but it should be at least 80% right. Okay. The final 20% you can tweak over the next couple of seasons with the feedback from
so
the stakeholders.
What two mistakes am I most likely to make in the start of this thing if I'm starting in January?
That's a perfect way of burning capital and getting gray hairs and sleepless nights.
You don't have gray hair.
But in terms of production and impact, I would definitely rely on the better certifications. So for natural fibers, I would go 100% GOTS. And in order to know that you are socially compliant with like an acceptable standard that gives dignified working conditions and so on, you would need fair trade on top of that.
Okay.
Then you cover a big chunk of things that affect planet and things that affect people.
So just make sure the materials have those certifications.
Yeah, if you do that, you have already
started off well.
That's the big thing you can
bypass a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very effectively, and then you can push for renewable energy and recycled packaging and all kinds of strategies and technologies to lower the carbon footprint. And after that, when you really push it down, way down, then you can compensate the residual carbon footprint, for instance.
What about the business model? How should I launch the business?
Yeah, a lot of brands now, because we have such good medias with the social medias and YouTube and very good internet platforms, they launch direct-to-consumer brands. And if you do that effectively, very transparent with your activities and footprints and your partners and so on.
You get to keep more of the margin as opposed to relying on a reseller network where you have to share the margin.
Yeah, those are all
more.
Here you have full control of the expression of your
and
communication.
You sell online. Your store is a successful sales channel, starting in 2021, you have to have that. But I think it's interesting. You still maintain a few stores, which is what a kind of R&D. I mean, they need to be profitable, but it's still a way of staying on the street level. Like it keeps you in touch with what's selling, maybe ahead of time, or the people working in the stores are talking to customers constantly, so they can feed that back into head office.
Yeah.
So would you recommend I have, if I was doing this pretend brand, would you recommend a physical presence too?
Not necessarily, but there are all kinds of models. Depends on the product. Also, if it's just printed T-shirts, then that's quite easy to show on a picture.
Okay.
People can visualize. But if it's a jacket for €200 plus, they want to make sure it's a perfect fit and function, and want to know about the fabric, and they want to feel it, and so on. So that's harder to sell online.
Interesting. Because if you have a €35 T-shirt, or this, what is this one, 45?
Yeah, it's a sweatshirt for about 80.
80, okay. So as the price goes up, then people get closer to wanting to physically touch it before they buy it, or at least be able to return it easily.
Yeah, definitely. So you have to basically look at your whole marketing mix very carefully to optimize it, at least with 80% correct before you launch.
Okay.
But you can't wait for 100% because you will never launch it.
Okay. In terms of product category, like if I was launching, is T-shirts a good place to start? Or would I jump in and do jackets or something?
I think those category brands are very successful. They only do one thing. But we saw the need to be even more inclusive than that. That's why we do full collections, men, women, including swimwear and outwear. But the category brands, like they only do underwear.
Yeah,
only do watches, sunglasses.
I think that's important. I see that with my clients, that you need to own a space before moving on. It's the way I said is you got to earn the right to expand your collection in a way. There's no point moving on to other things if you're not satisfying the demand or even achieving what you want to achieve in that vertical. So if you're patient over time, you can expand. And do it in a safe way, I guess. You don't want to risk too much capital, as you say. I'm sure you have some horror stories of maybe buying some things that didn't end up selling and you're left with the stock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But quality control is paramount, and having the expertise to really follow up on all the details.
Yeah.
Measurements, chemical stats and so on. We don't use chemicals really, but all the details basically.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate this conversation. This is it's so great to see a business as authentic and doing such a good job as dedicated. I have no doubt that you're going to ride the current rough seas that are hitting everybody. Retail obviously is affected, but you're going to come out of it stronger, I think.
All our customers now we can see our own 5 stores, sales are down 80% in some of them. But it will pass, and luckily now we will get the vaccine, and I'm very positive about 2021.
Yeah. And there'll be a resurgence. I mean, that demand is still there. It's just backed up, and there'll be a renaissance, and it'll hopefully come back quickly. I'm sure it will. But in a way, it sorts the good from the bad. I think in a way, the sort of positive that could come from this sort of blip or delay, you might want to call 2020, is that we see perhaps the less authentic brands or the legacy brands that have been cheating at sustainability maybe they will disappear or move into other areas and leave the genuine brands like Dedicated to satisfy the demand.
Yeah, that is definitely is the development we're seeing now, and it's great that consumer demand brands to be better.
Yes,
because the traditional model is that you only look out for basically your shareholders,
right,
and your responsibility is to maintain and build their shareholder value.
Yeah,
but that's not the case anymore. They're one of many stakeholders,
right? And this crazy
planet is the biggest one.
This crazy concept of disposable fashion, I hate that word. Like, it was something that was touted as a business model, I think, like 10 years ago. People were proud of it. We're just, we want people to throw their stuff away and buy the next season thing, and it would just go in landfill. That's, I think, had its day. That's such a old-fashioned way of approaching things.
Yeah, it's mindless. So people are actively trying to diminish their impulse shopping now,
right?
And
thinking more about what it is they're buying and eating, and it's only good.
Yeah, it's super important, and could not have come any sooner.
Yeah,
this development.
Great. And maybe you could reconnect with the skateboarding dream. Is there a plan for a skateboard, like a dedicated skateboard? Can we buy a dedicated skateboard in the online store?
And we've done some collabs.
Okay.
But to be a skateboard brand, you need to build a skateboard team that you sponsor and promote them with videos and material and so on, and help them get to, to demos and competitions and so on. So that's why I don't want to. I have so much respect for skateboarding. I don't want to bring it into this business without
doing it
properly and bringing value to the scene.
Yeah,
but
it'd be nice.
We do that with my other brand has a skateboard team.
Okay,
some of the best female skateboarders in the world.
Wow.
This accessory brand that I started is going strong.
Okay,
and, but then we have a team manager and so on. All the things. That I mentioned is kind of required.
Okay, and with that brand, what's it called?
It's CHPO.
CHPO.
With sunglasses and watches.
Okay.
Recycled plastic sunglasses. And
wow. That's another podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should definitely talk to Victor.
Okay.
He's just around the corner.
I'd love to find out what you've learned from Dedicated and how you've maybe improved with that brand.
Yeah. We have a constant trade-off and help each other with contacts and new ideas. And
amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And hopefully maybe in a year from now, we can do another podcast and see where things are. And wish you all the best and continued success.
Thanks a million, Daniel.
Thanks, Johan.
Very appreciate it.
Cheers.
Great.